Good morning, everyone. This is Doug. This episode is part one of two, where we're dealing with Yeshua and the Torah, the duration of the covenant there on the right, and then we have Paul on the left. Paul is saying the law is abolished, and we're going to put Paul to the next episode. We want to see what does Yeshua say about the duration of the Torah, and that will help us understand better where Paul is coming from and maybe where he shouldn't be going. But basically, we're going to focus today on Yeshua and the Torah. All right, so this is the primary passages that we need to be looking at, and Matthew 5, verse 18 is the key, and then it ties in with Revelation 21, verses 1 and 2, because that's where there's a new heaven and new earth. Well, that's what Jesus is referring to in Matthew 5:18. He says, until the heavens and earth pass away, not one jot will pass away from the Torah law until all things take place. So he's referencing clearly back to the heavens and earth are going to disappear at some point. And that's also in Isaiah 66 and 67. We'll get into that later. So Revelation 21, 1 and 2 is important because that's the verse 1 is the new heavens and new earth. And then the verse 2 of chapter 21 of Revelation is the new Jerusalem comes down to earth. Then we're also going to go over Acts 3, 20, 21. That's where Peter is talking about the Yeshua has to stay in heaven until the restoration of all things. And that term all things, what has to be restored, is going to tie into 5:18 because they both talk about all things. And that's going to be all things take place that have to take place, have to be accomplished. And you'll see that is exactly coterminous with the passing away of the heavens and earth. That will be coterminous where all things are now completed. So we'll get to that, and you'll see this is a striking statement. If somebody were to come along and say was terminated way before now, it would be very difficult to justify that. All right, so I'm just going to briefly digress about the law. Just want to get this cleared up. Is we Gentiles, as a lawyer, as an attorney, I advise people to follow the law all the time. So I read it carefully, and we have, as Gentiles, this simple category of things that we must obey. That's the 10 Commandments. Also, this is Yahweh speaking. Also, the foreigners, the sojourners who join themselves to Yahweh to serve him and to love Yahweh's name, to be his servants. Everyone who keeps the Shabbat from profaning it and holds fast my covenant. That's the 10 Commandments. I'll get to that in a second. I'll bring these to my holy mountain. That's Mount Zion, and make them joyful, my house of prayer. And this is a message actually about the next kingdom in the future. So if you want to enter the holy mountain, you have to do that in this lifetime. That's what this is about. And Jesus quotes this verse in verse 7 of Isaiah 56, in Matthew 21, 13, Luke 19, verse 4, and Mark 11, verse 17. And so you say, well, wait a minute. It says you have to keep the covenant. Doesn't mean I have to keep 600 laws. No. The children of Israel have 600 commandments about them. The Levite priests have another bunch of commands, and the high priest has a lot of other commands for him. But we have these 10 that we must keep for covenant's sake. Okay, doesn't mean you have options. If you want to obey certain laws, you can go to Passover, you can go to whatever, the temple, but you weren't mandated, just as I mentioned in other episodes. But here's what it says here in Deuteronomy 4, verse 13. Moses tells the people he declared to you the covenant that he commanded you to observe. Moses' own word, the 10 Commandments, and he inscribed them on two tablets of stone. Richard Elliott Friedman, in his commentary on Torah in 2001, states very clearly that 10 Commandments are the covenant. All the other commandments are important. He's speaking to Jewish people. But the 10 Commandments on the tablets are different. Violation of them by the community risks the breaking of the covenant. They're the essence of the covenant itself. So God puts a lot more seriousness on the 10 than any other commandment. So God doesn't tell us exactly. If I were a Jewish person, I wouldn't be sure if I could violate any of those other than the 10. But for us Gentiles, he's made it very clear, very specific in Isaiah 56. If we keep the 10, now what else do we have to consider? Well, Peter told us that Jesus is the universal prophet of Deuteronomy 18. That means anything he says is binding on the world, everybody. And that's the words he used, God Yahweh used. Every person who does not obey that prophet, every person, not just children of Israel, not the high priest, not the Levite priest. So just so you remember what this is about, this one heaven must receive until the time all things are restored. We're going to actually focus on that verse a little bit, which God declared from times long ago through his holy prophets. Moses said, the Lord your God, the Yahweh your God, will raise up to you a prophet like me from among your brethren. You must obey him in everything he tells you. So again, that word pisto that I've been talking about in all the 21 plus times in John and other places, and it's being mistranslated, and it really means obey. It's significant because if you don't get that right, you aren't going to be excluded under this principle, who Jesus is. Okay, every person who does not obey that prophet will be what? Destroyed and thus removed from the people. So God is very serious. He wants this prophet obeyed. Okay, there was a guy called Noah. Nobody wanted to listen to him either, and so only 8 people get saved on a boat. You don't want to be in the excluded category, right? So listen to the prophet. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. All right, so let's take a look first at Matthew 5:17 to 18. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am come not to destroy, but to fulfill. So what is he saying? I'm not here to get rid of the law, but to fulfill, plaru, that's to perform. Okay, so what is he trying to fulfill? The Torah prophecy of the following. The prophet, I just read it to you, Deuteronomy 18. And it's referenced, the prophet of Deuteronomy 18 is also referenced in John 6, verse 14, John 7, verse 40, and the verses I just showed you, Acts 3:21 to 28. 2, Jesus also came to fulfill the Messiah prophecy in Daniel 9:25 to 26. And how did that work out? Well, let's see. The Messiah has to be cut off, not for himself. And this is going to be exactly predicted to be on a certain date. It'll be 483 lunar years. That's the Torah way of measuring years. That converts to 476 solar years, and that's going to be since or after the order sent out by, it was by Nehemiah. The prophet Nehemiah did this, but this prophecy of Daniel is over 150 years earlier. So an order goes out in 444 BC to rebuild the first temple. So the first temple had been destroyed, and then they had to rebuild it. So that order went out in 444 BC to do that. You subtract 476 solar years, which is the way the BC category is being used. So our dating system is now solar. So 476 minus 444 means this person, the Messiah, is cut off, but not for himself, at approximately 32 AD on a solar calendar. Okay? So, and then even in that prophecy, it says a ruler will come to destroy the temple. And that ruler Rome came to destroy the temple in 70 AD. So that came fulfilled perfectly as well. 3, new covenant prophecy. This is the third thing he definitely came to fulfill. Jeremiah 31, verse 31 and 33 is to do what? To put my Torah. God Yahweh says, I'm going to have a new covenant where my Torah will be put on their hearts, the people's hearts. Why would Jesus fulfill that? And how did he fulfill that? By teaching the way he did, with parables that were extraordinarily memorable, easy to memorize, and always made the Torah sensibly presented instead of in a strict way that you couldn't understand it. It would be too difficult. He made it easy and approachable, right? And it was therefore more memorable on their hearts. Then it says this in verse 18, for verily I say unto you, till the heaven and earth pass. And that's going to be in Revelation 21, verse 1. It's also in Isaiah 66 and 67. I'll show that to you in a little bit. Till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law and the Torah till all takes place. Okay. Now, the way some people like to read this is that, oh well, it's true. You can't have the law going away before the heavens and earth pass, except if this till all clause applies. But that's the wrong way to read law or statement. Let me put it that way, because if it says in no wise it will ever go away, the law, while the heavens and earth are still here, that's an emphatic statement. So now the next clause should be construed consistent with that, or otherwise this is self-contradictory. Also, it would be surplusage. Why even mention this first part if this is all it matters, is till all things take place is all you needed to say, if the second part is able to trump the first part. But it can't, and that's the 2 reasons I just gave you is why it can't work that way. But we'll see what exactly he meant. All right, so let's take a look at this. Peter is speaking in Acts 3:21 about all things, the Greek word pas, for the renovation of a new and better era. That's the way Mr. Mounsey explains its meaning. matches, quote, all things pas, which takes place in Matthew 5:18. So this idea of all things exists in both Acts 3:21, also in Matthew 5:18. And both are talking about the same thing. So Matthew 5:18 is talking about not one jot will disappear until heaven and earth disappears. So that's talking about what? The new heavens and new earth. That's a renovation of the future. Okay. So he is saying the same thing. This is talking about the same thing. So all things for renovation is parallel to what Matthew was talking about in 5:18. All things have to take place to before you have heavens and earth gone. So, in other words, each one of these requires this to be exhausted, and then the heavens and earth can be happen. So the heavens and earth cannot go away until all things take place. Same thing over here. The renovation, the new heavens and new earth, is to bring about the renovation of all things. So obviously, these are coterminous with each other. They overlap each other, but you cannot argue that the statement about until all things are accomplished somehow did away with this conditionality that is coterminous. I'm going to show you what the scholar says about this word here. Mouncy says the word apokatastasis means a renovation of a new and better era. That's key because that's exactly what is a new heaven and new earth. It's a renovation. It's a brand new thing that's a new and better than the old earth and the old heavens. So let's see how scholars agree with me on this. Robbins, page 231, says Acts 3:21 is the renovation of all things, pas of a new and better era, is a reference to when God does away with the present heaven and earth. That puzzle piece fits perfectly with Matthew 5:18, where Yeshua says, truly I say unto you, one, until heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law until all things take place. So you see this parallelism between Acts 3:21 and Matthew 5:18 about all things take place, renovation of all things in Acts 3:21. Let's go look at it in more depth. The first clause of Matthew 5, verse 19, prevents law disappearing before the new heaven and earth disappears, which happens only in Revelation 21, verse 1. That's way after the millennium, right? Also, number two, the clause cannot accelerate the end of Torah, meaning the all things until all things take place. This number two clause over here, number two clause cannot accelerate the end of Torah without either being self-contradictory, so it would be completely contrary to saying that the heavens and earth, the Torah can't go away until the heavens and earth have gone away, not one jot or tittle, and then to say, oh, but it can go away if all things have already happened. That should happen. No, that's not how you read that. You have to read something consistent with it. It can't be self-contradictory. Also, it would render unnecessary Jesus even mentioning number one. If it all depends upon all things that take place, why even bother mentioning the heavens and earth disappear? Okay, so it's clear it's wrong the way people try to read it and misconstrue it. Moreover, because the law is still being followed up to Revelation 22:14, in Revelation 22:14 it says, those who do his commandments have access to the tree of life. Therefore, there's commandments continuing ongoing even up to this point in time. The Torah law is still in effect as a qualifier of those who get to eat from the tree of life. Okay, so this is somewhat after the time period of Revelation 21 verse 1 when there's a new heaven and earth. So this criteria of obeying God's law arguably could all the way be up to 22:14. On the other hand, it could be right exactly when the new heavens and earth happens, and then the law can end. We're not told exactly when it ended, but we know it was still operative as a test whether you're going to make it into the next level or not. And it's already there in Revelation 22:14. And remember, I did a recent video on this, and this verse is emphatically correct. And the majority text, the Textus Receptus, and the King James all have this verse correct. And that's even verified by the earliest writings by Cyprian and Tertullian. And so there was a variant that you can find in the Codex Sinaiticus, but that was 120 years after the fact. So you always go with the earliest proof of its existence, and its earliest proof is double proved, two witnesses, two different lines of text. Anyway, let's continue. The Torah is still in effect as a qualifier for those who get to eat from the tree of life in Revelation 22:14. Once eaten, that completes all things prophesied in the book of Revelation. So once everybody gets this opportunity, who's going to get it, to eat from that tree of life, there is what? No further prophecy extends beyond that point for the human project of God. So if you look at chapter 22, it rapidly reaches its conclusion. And then it says, adding any more prophecy is barred on pain of loss of salvation. Any change, any addition to the book of Revelation at that point is barred, and you will be taken out of the book of life. So this is the proof positive that all things have been accomplished, because that's why this last language there to say no more prophecy, no more additions to this book. This is closed now. And that's why we know it's emphatic. This is when the law was gone. By this time, for sure, if not right around 2214, when it's still the criteria for judging people in that time period. And at best, it would be at the time the law would have gone away when the heavens and earth disappeared. And that would be Revelation 21, verse 14. And that's after the millennium. So it's impossible that it was in the time period of Christ that the law went away. Just saying. And there's another way of proving that the law could not have been done away in the time of Paul's lifetime, because the law said itself, it was everlasting for all generations. Okay. And that can be found in all these series of verses, Exodus 27, verse 21, and all this series over here. Just to give you an example, Exodus 27, verse 21. This is to be a lasting ordinance among the children of Israel for generations to come, so on. And but then Jesus does tell us when giving and taking in marriage will cease. Just pay attention to this. Jesus says this, for in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the angels in heaven. So when is the resurrection? Well, that would probably be, what do you think? That would be in the time period of Christ's return. People will be resurrected from the dead and be in the new millennial kingdom. That's what I would assume. And that goes on for 1,000 years. So Paul couldn't be correct that the law went away when there's generations still existing, because the law said it would be everlasting for all generations. And all generations only cease when the resurrection occurs. Now, Jesus spoke of the resurrection in some other place. Do you remember? So not just in Matthew 22, verse 30, John 5, verse 20 to 29. Marvel not at this, for the hour is coming in the which all that are in the graves shall hear his voice, and shall come forth, they that have done good unto the resurrection of life, and they that have done evil unto the resurrection of damnation. I won't even get into the doctrine of salvation here. Jesus doesn't see things the way Paul does, but you can see it on the page. I'm just telling you, what does this tell us about the resurrection? They neither marry nor are given in marriage until this moment, and this is a final type of resurrection of the dead. Well, when you compare the two passages, Jesus is thinking the resurrection is something where there's no more humans on earth. Okay? They neither marry nor are given in marriage in the resurrection. So this is the same thing that's going on in John 5. Everyone's being resurrected who's going to be resurrected, and none of them are going to be marrying anymore. So that is not during the lifetime of Paul, okay? This is far into the future. There are no generations that ceased at the time of Paul. People were still generating children. And as long as the generations continue, what did we learn from just reading the Torah? Remember this slide? Law, 20 times it said, was everlasting for all generations. So clearly, Paul could not be correct that the law was done away with when people are still having generations on earth, because it's everlasting for all generations. And Jesus chose his words very carefully. When the dead in Christ resurrect, and all the people who are dead get resurrected, that's the terminus of any more generations. That's when the law potentially can end at that point. It can go further depending on when you count. And so you have the coming of the new heavens and a new earth. That's maybe another terminus point, right? Because that's what Jesus uses as another time. But it's not clear. But it has to be after the resurrection that the terminus point comes. So probably it has to be Revelation 21, verse 1, when there's new heavens and new earth. That's the terminus point when the law ceases. And then people are judged by having obeyed or not obeyed the law in Revelation 22, verse 14. I still want to give a caveat that it is possible from Revelation 21, 1, which is the new heavens and new earth, to Revelation 22:14, there could still be a period of time when you have to obey the law, right? because it's not gone away with yet, technically, because here you have, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter into the gates of the city. So all we know from Jesus in Matthew 5:19 is that it's going to be after the heavens and earth have disappeared that the law could go away, but it doesn't give us an exact terminus point. So it's possible it's right when the new heavens and new earth occur, because it has to be after that point, Jesus said, but it could also be just prior to Revelation 22:14. But when all things are accomplished, is it right here? Because at this point, it goes on to say to the end of Revelation 22, it gives these final warnings. Anybody who adds any more prophecy to this book or takes anyone away is going to be, blotted out of the book of life. So this is it's an unanswered question exactly what it is, but it's in this time period. But clearly, by the time you get to Revelation 22:14, now we're living where what Jesus said something about his own words will survive the uh, departure of the heavens and earth. Let me just pull that up for you. This is where Jesus says in Matthew 24, verse 35, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. So when that point where the law can go away, which is some point after the heavens and earth go away, Jesus says, no matter what, my words will never pass away. Now, I just want to show you, here's another tension with Paul, 2 Corinthians 5, verse 16, KJV, wherefore hence know we no man after the flesh, yea, though we have known Christ after the flesh. That's the guy who gave all these commandments that he said the 12 apostles would be inspired to remember what he said. Yet now, henceforth, know we him, Jesus, that way no more. We no longer know the Jesus of flesh. Yet, that was so odd is Paul never quotes Jesus, talking to him. He has the communion liturgy, which is anybody should know that. And then he has one time his Jesus wouldn't refuse to remove he asked, make this angel of Satan, this angelos satanas, depart from me. And he didn't say heal me. He said, make it depart from me, as if it's possessing him. And yet his Jesus says, no, in your weakness is my strength. That's 2 Corinthians 12, verses 6 and 7. But Paul is saying, no, we don't want to know the Jesus of earth, that Jesus who was in flesh. We know him that way no longer. And I could go through. I've done the episode where Boltman construes this to mean that I don't know what Jesus was thinking about anything, and I really don't care, because I'm told by Paul I don't have to worry about the Jesus of earth, the Jesus who was human on earth. But we know, if we're following Christ, the verse we look at is Matthew 24:35, that every word he says will never pass away, even if the heavens and earth pass away. So all this idea of dispensations getting rid of Jesus and Jesus' words failed, you're forgetting something. You're ignoring this passage. Matthew 24, verse 35, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. There is no dispensation that disregards Christ. There is no dispensation that you can just say, well, that was what he said in the flesh. I'm just going to follow somebody else who doesn't even quote him. Please, everybody, please start thinking about all this stuff. So I'm going to make this available now in a PDF when this is all over. I'm going to put it out on my channel, and for $10 you can buy it, and then you can distribute as much as you want, and I hope you will, and use it to help people to come to Christ. So this is just an educational tool for you to do evangelism. This very episode, the content, the PDF slides. All right, God bless. Take care. Ciao, bye.